Hey, this is Adrian,
And I'm Danny.
and we're the authors of Unexplainable Adventures, The Power of Influence. And Danny and I have been working on this book for close to 2 years, investing a lot of time into it, something that we're both really passionate about. Danny, of course, a father of two, a husband. I have two younger siblings. And Danny, why don't you talk a little bit about the inspiration behind the creation of this book?
Yeah, so Adrian originally reached out to me and he was just asking me questions because he was really interested in writing a self-development book for kids because there's thousands of self-help books for adults, but there's really nothing for children. And so he gives me a call. He starts asking me these questions because he knows that I'm really connected with my boys and I read to them. And at the time, there really wasn't anything in the way of taking self-help books and turning them into children's stories and putting them in a way that children can understand them. So Adrian started asking me questions about them, and I, of course, was very excited for him because I thought that this was going to be so helpful for kids. And then just about halfway through the conversation, he's asking me questions, and I'm just giving him the ideas that I think would be helpful. He's like, "Wait a second, why don't you just write this with me?" And I thought, wow, that's a great idea. And so we put our heads together and we came up with it. And basically, in this book, this is the first of a series. And what we did, we both agreed that we needed to start with how to win friends and influence people because it was such a an important book for both of us as far as learning how to manage our relationships. So it doesn't really matter what line of work you're in. The book is very clear that everyone can benefit from learning how to win friends and influence people. And so we put our heads together and we wrote it and here we are now.
Yeah, to piggyback on that. So I have a younger sister. It's just turned 16 last month, and my younger brother who just turned 14 on the same day. They have the same birthday. And for a few years, I was looking for a book that would actually be helpful. Dr. Seuss books are cool, but I was looking for something that would really give them like a head start or just like an advantage in life in general. And How to Win Friends and Influence People is the number one book that helped steer me in the right direction. And after years of searching, I just couldn't find any books like that for kids, and definitely not any that were kind of set up in a fictional way. And like Danny said, I would call him or text him. It's like, hey, I need some advice on this. And then yeah, I one day I decided that instead of waiting for somebody to write one of these books, that I would just do it. And then, like Danny said, I was having this conversation with him. I was like, wait, man, I ask you for advice all the time. Why don't you help me do this and we can create this together? And really that's why it was born, or how it was born. It's a long way of saying the same thing you said, Danny.
Yeah.
So what do you think are some of the things that set this book apart from like the traditional books you might find on Amazon?
Well, first of all, I've tried reading How to Win Friends and Influence People to my oldest, and the vocabulary is just it's from a different time. It's amazing vocabulary, but you really have to be at a certain age to really appreciate it. So the first thing is that we're taking these ideas, and because of the setting, because of the characters, and because of the story being so engaging, these kids can really benefit from all of the principles that are being put in the book. But instead of Dale Carnegie being the one to teach us how to do these things, we're learning these lessons from, Memphis, who's the main character. We're learning from his mentor. We're learning from his friends, from his mother. We're learning how not to do things as well from some of the antagonists in the story. And so that's the main first difference. Other than that, the book is extremely engaging, and anything that can keep kids engaged these days is so important because we understand that kids just don't have the attention spans that they used to have, and we understand also that the lessons that we're putting forth are much needed nowadays in these days where kids are becoming more and more disconnected from face-to-face interactions, and we just want to equip these kids with the ability to just learn how to interact with other people, learn how to manage conflicts in a way that everybody wins. And those I would say would be the main differences that I see. How about you?
I think, and this might be a kind of like a little off topic, but actually probably not. So I remember being in middle school, and we had this one science teacher that he made learning really fun. Like he made it funny, he made it entertaining, and he was one of the classes out of the six that we had per day that you looked forward to going to. And it was because it wasn't just blah 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 blah. Here's a test. It was like cool stuff like experiments. He could relate with you. It was just really entertaining and engaging. And I think that's what we are doing here. Giving them these important principles, like you said, or sharing them with the kids, but definitely doing it in a way where it's going to be fun for them. Because if it's not fun for them, they're not going to do it. And
100%.
if it's just like a textbook, like there's so many textbooks I remember seeing at school or reading at school or not reading at school, that were just full of all this dull information. Great info, just not positioned in a way that it was entertaining enough to engage me. So I think that's one of the main things that sets this book apart. It's funny actually, Danny. My mom has been reading the book because this book is not just for kids, it's for kids and for parents because this book will help the parents as well. Of course, they can read the adult version, but we created this so kids can read it with their parents. You'll see that worksheet that we have available. But my mom was actually, she's been reading the book and she's like, Adrian, I don't let people talk and I don't listen to them. While I'm having a conversation with somebody, I'm not even listening to what they're saying. I'm thinking about what I'm gonna say. And she was like, I can't. I'm. My mom's 65. She's like, I'm 65, and I just realized that from reading this. It's crazy.
That is
What's your
such a good point.
favorite? What's your favorite principle, or do you have a favorite principle?
Well, I think if I had to just, this might be two principles in one, but it's the same idea. And that is number one, something as simple as remembering someone's name, you know, because someone hearing their name is the sweetest thing they've ever heard. So being able to remember people's names, but not only that, when you want to get people to cooperate with you, whether you're trying to get them to work, whether you're trying to, whatever it is that you're trying to gain agreement on, you really need to be able to understand what their problems are and what's important to them. Because the principle that talks about how a famine in China
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter as much to this person as, you know, their foot that's been hurting for weeks,
Okay.
you know, or something like that. It really just goes to show how nothing is more important to people, and it's understandable, it's human nature. Nothing's more important to them than their problems. So being able to frame things in a way that gets them to understand that this is going to solve their problems is so important. Along with that, I mean, you know, being able to pick our battles, being able to understand when it's okay to push back and when it's okay to assert yourself and when it's probably not beneficial. We have a really funny story in the book on that, on how,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the first day on a job saying the wrong thing could cost you your job. So there's just so much, and if children can start cultivating that skill at an early age and not have to wait until they're adults to do it, they're going to just be so much more ahead than their peers when they get into the workforce, when they build their own businesses. So it really just is, it's the beginning of several books, but it really is a huge, very important topic for people of all ages, like you said.
Yeah, I agree. I think my favorite, or there's so many great points. I really like the story about the famine or the quote. Um, I think one of my favorite ones, besides that one, would be how to give people like suggestions or uh, maybe constructive criticism, like but how to go about doing that, because people like helping people, right? And a lot of times you can say something to somebody and your intentions are to help them, but the way that you say it, they take it totally wrong. So I think learning how to basically give people advice or suggestions basically in a way that's not going to offend them, but they can actually like receive it and put it into motion. I think that's one of my favorite principles.
Totally agree, man.
And this book also it comes with a really cool workbook that it makes it interactive. So after your child reads a section or a chapter, there'll be like a fun little section in the workbook that they can fill out. There's crossword puzzles, there's puzzles, there's questions and answers, or question sections. And I think that's really cool. But another really great thing is, you as the parent, you're on this website, you're probably looking for a great book for your child or your children, and you're looking at this book. So number one, thank you. But number two, you're busy, right? You're a parent, you have a job, and you don't have a lot of time left. So what's really cool about the parent cheat sheet that we created is if you don't have time to read the book, it's okay. You can look at our cheat sheet that we created. So while your son or your daughter is reading the book, you can have conversations with them after each chapter, and you'll know the most valuable points of that chapter or section.
Yeah, I mean that's so clutch to make sure that these principles are being inculcated and that they're absorbing the information, and just anything that can reinforce the lessons in the book is going to be so helpful. So I totally agree. I think that's going to be a huge benefit to any parent who's doing it, whether they're homeschooling their children or whether they're just trying to make sure that they keep up and stay engaged with their children as they read this really important work.
Absolutely. And for you audiobook fans, we will have an audiobook available as well. It's going to be a little different than most typical audiobooks because it's going to be an audiobook for children. So it's going to go with our whole theme of making it extra entertaining. So there'll be sound effects. If it's raining, you'll hear the rain. If there's, different sound effects going on, you're going to hear them. I don't want to give too much away, but it's going to be really cool.
Totally agree.
Um, that's it. We hope that you enjoy the book. We hope you check it out and you give it to your kids and you read it together and really spend some time with them going over the principles and just like the story overall is pretty awesome. Um, but yeah, and share with your friends. That's all I got.
Absolutely. And we just want to thank you for considering this book and for checking it out. If it helps you in any way, please share with anybody that you know. Please give us that review because that's what really helps us get more visibility so that we can help more people.
Absolutely.